Hola, boa noite. I'll be honest and say I'm not feeling it tonight. Which is a weird thing to say when you're lying in bed. I've already cheered myself up with that bit of smut. But this is the Portugal Pillow Talk podcast, the personal backstory to the Good Morning Portugal podcast, where me and Mrs. Munson are sat in bed reflecting at the end of the day on life in lockdown. COVID diary.
Yeah, and last time we did it, we got like 2 thumbs downs, didn't we?
It's funny how you would focus on that, but it's hard for the human mind not to, right?
Yeah,
I want to know why, that's all.
Yeah.
Actually,
it was probably because I was being boring about sauerkraut and
sourdough.
Yeah, been one of my lectures on fermenting. Wouldn't it?
There's your answer.
Probably wasn't you, it's probably me.
Applied fermenting. It wasn't me who put the dislikes, I promise you. I'd tell you to your face. Anyway, if it was you listening now,
let us know.
Come on, tell us why. Tell us how we can improve this podcast.
It could have been, what's his name, who had been ribbing us.
Who's that?
The guy about the balcony.
Oh, was he Jerry?
No. What was his name?
Terry.
I don't know.
Anyway, he's had far too much oxygen of publicity.
Okay, come on. Let's go.
Well, I don't think we've got an alliterative list tonight. I was saying I wasn't that fussed about doing it, and you said you're feeling... Because you've done 300 live streams today? Three.
And a couple of readings for people.
Yeah, it's really nice. Ow, don't pull my nasal hairs while we're live on air. That kind of hurts. When me and the kids are missing you and we want to connect with you, we just watch you on Facebook Live now. There's Mummy. There's Mummy on Facebook Live. Remember her? And the kids love it. We're thinking of writing in to get a signed photo to look at as well.
Well, I do keep saying to people, come and join me and we'll talk about it live. That'd be more fun.
No, you're doing amazingly. But the reason you wanted to do something tonight on this podcast was because you're feeling a change of energy.
Yeah.
And I've likened that to the stages of grief. Mm-hmm. And people are referencing that at the moment, aren't they? That was created by Kubler-Ross. I forget her first name, forgive me. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, obviously. And there are 5 or 7 stages, depending on which model you look at. Just very briefly with grief. And, people will be facing that for the obvious reason if they lose somebody. Well, but also just it's a loss of our way of life.
My sister's family lost somebody today, last night.
Yeah. And so it's shock at first, then denial, then anger, the frustrated outpouring of bottled up emotion, bargaining, seeking in vain for a way out, depression, the final realization of the inevitable. Then there's testing, which is a new one to me, seeking realistic solutions. And then there's acceptance, finally finding the way forward. And as is often said about grief, everyone does it in their own way. But there's a parallel here, isn't there, with the stages of lockdown. And for us, and again, it would be different for everybody. But I'm aware not only of our own journey, but what other people are going through at the moment. And I definitely sensed a change today of people questioning. It's like people are fed up with it. And they're, instead of just being passively fed up, they are being questioningly, a bit sort of teenage about it. Like, why do I have to kind of vibes, and questioning the official lines and narratives about why they should be in lockdown, but still staying inside, to be fair. But, going into other rabbit holes of theories about, what we'll call conspiracy theories. It's not a term I like to use because it's just too damaging and emotional. But yeah, going off on all sorts of tangents to, I suppose, deal with the effects of what's going on. But you've got to a point as well in your own lockdown journey, yeah? You're
well, funnily enough, today
rousing the rabble.
Yeah, funnily enough, today I was talking about how we, talk about the powers that be. They're like our parents, and we've had a few conversations about that. And like where, yes. I've got a theory. I don't think it's my own. I think loads of people sort of would maintain that if you've got your own parent issues, the chances are you'll project that out into your world. And so it's like, who hasn't got parent issues? Most of us have, because families have been systematically broken down for years and years and years. And we trust, or we let people tell us how we need to behave and what we should be doing and this, that and the other, and we kind of just expect them to do it, like it's almost like we're still living at home with our parents. We just think, oh, it's okay, mum and dad will sort that out. Mum and dad will sort that out. In fact, you say that to me sometimes. Oh, it's okay, mum and dad will sort that out. If I leave a towel, I don't hang it up straight away. You kind of almost talk to me
you're
like
airing our dirty linen.
No, it's funny. I was actually saying today, astrologically, not just yet, but in the third week of April, I see that people are getting to a teenage stage, and I actually sort of encourage it. I actually say this is part of us waking up to becoming adults, it's one thing to be adults that are tired, uninspired, and kind of, being adults, but not really showing up in their communities because, we've all followed the patterns that we've been sold from childhood, and you can be completely forgiven for thinking that it's okay to just go to work Monday to Friday, to, have a mortgage, have a car, kind of like be this kind of respectable person living the kind of life that we've been sold. But, when we're at school, or when I was at school in the 80s and 90s, we weren't really told about citizenship. We weren't really taught. Yeah, we had personal social education or whatever it's called. But I don't know what it's called now, but we weren't really...
It's got health in it now.
Oh.
Is it PISH? P-S-H-E?
I have no idea.
Or P-H-S-E? Yeah.
SHEP. We could do all those different varieties of it. But
HEPS.
But the fact is, like, it's very easy to say, oh, well, I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to pick up litter because the government are going to employ somebody locally to pick up our litter. I don't need to do this because our local government are going to do that. And we rely on so many people. It's like we rely on this cosmic mum and dad, or this kind of authority mum and dad. And, we're really surly when we don't get our own way. And the reason being is, because half the time we're not really assuming our full responsibility for our lives. And so, of course, we get people managing us as if we're not really capable of looking after ourselves. And it's just really occurring to me. And at the moment with astrology, it's really clear to see the patterns of rousing, it's coming up all throughout April. I did all my April updates today. And, what I'm urging people to do is go through the teenage stage of questioning, asking all the difficult questions, being a bit petulant, but do it in that adult way. So don't do it in such a way that you get grounded by Boris and his merry men, because like if you become a petulant teenager, you'll get the sharp end of the law. You'll get in masses of trouble. Do it in a kind of respectable way. Think of an adult way of showing up in your community. Stand for what you believe in. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to become the Prime Minister. You don't have to become an MP. All you have to do, all any of us have to do, is just to show up. And that could be letting someone go before you in a queue because you can see they're tired or old or needing help. It could be doing something useful for somebody nearby. It could be participating in a garden, a shared garden. It could be so many different things. You could be volunteering your time to teach somebody that can't read and write and it's embarrassed. You could be doing anything.
It's a rebellious act, but not in the teenage rebellion style.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'm not saying, like knock signs over deliberately.
Push wheelie bins down the street.
Yeah. I'm not saying set fire to wheelie bins, because that kind of civil disobedience, you will then get a really strong parent reaction from the people who are supposed to take charge, because of course they're going to do that. And they've got more resources
interesting what you say.
They've got more resources at their disposal.
Yeah, I think the natural response to authority is to behave like a child, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's how we are formed and made.
Oh, that's why we go to school earlier and earlier each year.
Well, it's just we're young, aren't we?
Yeah.
And there's no life starts young.
And there's no rites of passage either.
No, you're not accepted into the adult world, are you? At any moment.
Yeah, like
in an official way.
Like my parents left school, or my dad left school at 15, and my mum left school, I don't know, actually
4:00.
Yeah, 4:00 every day. And like you could actually go and get yourself a job back then, and back then I'm talking 60s, you were able to earn a crust at 15 and you were considered obviously a youngster, but with a certain amount of respect. And, like when you were 18, it was a big deal. You got a key. When you were 21, you got something else.
You still got those symbols then, didn't you? Which you don't have now.
Yeah, and now what happens is people go out on the lash and it's just a big gold celebration, but there's no real acknowledgement that people...
It's not very grown up to get drunk, is it?
Well, I mean, I can, I've been there, done that. I think we all have, haven't we? But you're right, it's not very grown up.
It's not
in other cultures, they have like trials.
It's not the same as being hung upside down by your nipples, is it? For example. Although I think
that's an interesting...
that probably does happen on some hen nights and stag do's. But,
God.
Well, when we were in that museum where, we were talking about initiation of African tribes.
Oh, yeah.
And how, they terrify the living bejeebers out of kids and to turn them into men.
Yeah.
Or so it would seem if the stories are to be believed. But, there is something of overcoming your childish fear.
Yeah.
To move into having an adult grasp of life.
Yeah.
And also being recognised by your community as an adult.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that. So then when it comes down to rebelling, people seem to do it in a childlike way. And so what are the acts of rebellion in the UK? Having a bloody barbecue. Like, that's powerful, isn't it? We're gonna drink and eat charred meat as a sign of our grown-up and mature expression of defiance. Okay. Well, that soon got doused by the old Bill and broken up. It's not exactly the most distinguished form of rebellion, is it? And it's right what you're saying. It's never occurred to me like that.
Also, I'm sure it has, but thank you.
Well, not in quite that way,
I'm sure. The police and nurses and people in sort of like who aren't like the MPs and the politicians. They're like the middle managers. If you were thinking of like a corporation, the police force are like the VPs. They're the people who are guarding the assets and making sure everything's working okay. But they are still people. They still have their foot in society. They're one of us. But like, of course, when we do those acts of civil disobedience, we increase the level of separation between them and us. And really what we want to be doing is actions that make them think, oh my goodness, yes, that makes sense. So that there is some kind of, what's the word? Like rapport building.
Yeah.
Like where...
recognition,
where we're showing ourselves to be strong people and well thought out people who've got something to say.
Well, there was a sense of that actually with Extinction Rebellion at times. It wasn't all people gluing themselves really irritatingly to trains and stuff. When you saw older people, or with the tree protests in Sheffield, when you saw older people getting involved, who clearly made a conscious choice and a calm, quiet, conscious choice. They seemed more respected, not always, but more often than not respected by the police as making a conscious choice.
Yeah. And
their right to protest was sometimes, seen with some level of respect. And it was a rancid pile of hooty woody poo poo in Sheffield with a tree. I mean, I'm not trying to romanticize it at all, but I just definitely saw at times a glimmer of some sort of respect from the police, thinking, hold on a minute, this is like my grandma, who seems to think this is a worthy thing of some, consideration and notoriety. So, and I want to see more elders, shout out to the elder posse, and you're right, to do things that aren't, because it's pretty ungainly, isn't it, to see an elder behaving like a teenager anyway. And that's quite common, and that's sort of seen as kind of cool, but it's also a bit ridiculous. And I think it'd be great for the elders to just do quite substantial but quiet things, like you say, in their community, leading the way quietly. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be on the front line, it doesn't have to be confrontational, does it? No. It doesn't have to be conflict. It can just be doing something that really obviously needs doing, and is really important, but getting off their sofa. That's quite an act of rebellion in its own way, isn't it? and not shrinking into the twilight in the kind of the winter of their years, but actually shining as an elder beacon of standing for something. You're standing up away from the sofa and for some sort of matter of principle. Pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's much easier for us to approach people of a higher status. Obviously, like people who run the country aren't a higher status, but they have a higher perceived status.
Position, certainly.
They have a higher responsibility and a higher position. And because of that, they seem unapproachable. They're like mum and dad. If you think about kids and mums and dads, like we've got the example right now, we've got like a 1-year-old and he looks up to us because he has to, like he's like a quarter of our size. And so kids from an early age know that they are small. And so one of the things that I think we all need to do is like get over our parent issues, like really look at sort of like where we have felt insignificant, where we felt small, and where we felt unable to cope with parental situations. Because until we can realize that we're grown up and meet things at the same, meet another adult and not put the parent on them, not project the parent on them, we're damaging our position by going into battle with people whilst we've still got a chip on our shoulder about being lower in the eyes. We need to, or I think we need to, maybe I should just talk for myself because that's more responsible, isn't it? I need to realise that I am of equal standing with any adult and that the contribution I bring to the table reflects my vision, my values, and how I stand up in the world.
Nice one.
And I think when you meet someone at that level, they can't treat you like a child.
Yes, yeah.
If you feel like a child, to be treated like a child. You have to...
And if you behave like one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of the stages of lockdown then, if we kind of work through that, some people were rebelling, some complying. Mm-hmm. We chose this kind of compliance route, didn't we? To
be fair, it kind of suited our aims.
Well, yeah,
anyway,
it was easy for us to do that, but it did seem right to observe the cultural collective idea about this.
Yeah, and we're also in another country trying to fit in as well.
Yeah.
We don't want to cause trouble for ourselves, do we?
Yes, but I think we are moving into the later stages of, not us personally, but as a culture, there's going to be a thing that's being managed, and presumably world governments are one step ahead anyway. They need to be in a way, don't they? They might be for their own kind of selfish agendas, but it would also be sensible for leaders and governments to be ahead of people. Otherwise, they get caught short. But I think there is a changing atmosphere, because here in Portugal, the extension of the state of emergency will be decided in the next couple of days. And it was leaked out in the UK, which is a reference point for us, that it might, it's like, well, it might be as long as 6 months just to test the waters. Excuse me. And I think that really freaked people out. They're fed up after 2 weeks. They can't imagine what it's going to be like after 6 months. And it's going to be like, emerging after 6 months is going to be a very strange psychological process for people as well, isn't it? Can you imagine? It's like, when like baby animals, a calf comes out into the field and it can barely stand on, or
it's not used to using its legs.
Yeah, or a puppy standing on snow. Humans are going to be like that after being inside for so long. I mean, we've all, I guess most people have had their own personal experience of a debilitating flu or something like that, where they've stayed in for a week. And it's weird when you come out after a week, isn't it? And you're back on your feet. So it's going to be strange after 2 weeks. It's going to be strange after 2 months. It's going to be very weird, I think, after 6 months. And it's not just going to be like, I'll carry on for 6 months. There will be an uprising in people, if not on the streets, then certainly in terms of their opinions and energies and reactions.
Yeah.
How vocal they're being. So I'm interested to see what the next stage is. And I think one way of dealing with it that occurred to me yesterday is that it's best not to wait until the imposed deadline, but to live your life as best you can, as you want to live it from now.
Yeah.
And work with the boundaries that are being set, but it kind of assimilate them in a kind of, like Taoist or martial artist sort of way, that you're not defined by the boundary.
Yeah.
You incorporate it yourself. You're powerful enough to work with it rather than be a victim of it. And that's the problem at the moment, isn't it? I think a lot of people are feeling a victim of external boundaries. Even if they willingly do it, like you say, they're being a child in relationship to a parentally imposed boundary.
Yeah.
But another sign of being an adult would be to take that martial artist or Taoist approach to assimilating everything around you rather than being a victim of it.
Yeah.
Which will be exciting to do, I think, as well. A much greater challenge, or a more fulfilling challenge, to see it like that.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I think, we need to kind of martial arts things, in the way that they do, like using the energy coming at you to kind of like go around you. The other thing that occurs to me is the powers that be, our leaders and stuff, will already have an idea of where they're going. And often when they bring in new shocking ideas or things that they know people aren't going to like or be encouraged by, they create a problem.
I think I've heard that David Icke chap talk about this.
But they do.
See, this is where you and I differ.
Hang on, I haven't finished. They create a problem, then they let the problem grow. So they sow the seeds so the problem gets really massive, and they have a hands-off effect, like hands-off, they like let everyone deal with the problem. And then when everyone's begging for the solution, then they give it. And of course, nobody complains that they're getting a solution that they wouldn't have wanted before the problem was created.
Yeah.
Now, you might say that's all David Icke, but actually it's what parents do all the time. We all do that with our kids.
Yes.
Because we want to give them... I'm
not saying that doesn't happen.
But you love your kids. So like, for instance, when we think our kids might be getting, I don't know, they want to spend all their money or something at a shop and they want to spend it on ice cream. And like we said to them hundreds of times before, you don't want to do that, then you won't have any pocket money, Then every now and again, we like let them feel the pain of spending all their money and not having it another day. So we just let them have that freedom, and let them experience the consequences so that we can suggest to them really politely, it gives us an area of influence, but we do that in a loving way. We don't do that really to control them or to do something like, in a way that is untowards. But the thing with our leaders is their feelings towards us isn't love. They're not really trying to nurture better behaviour for the betterment of mankind necessarily. They're just trying to manage profit probably, or manage their careers, or, and forgive me for being very distrustful, but, I don't think they love us like parents. And yet we give them parent-like authority. So what I would say is, whilst we've got this 6-month thing, like if we all start standing up, there's a few things that are going to happen. If we start standing up and we start like taking one step forward, we do something in our community, we stand up for our values, we think about something we're really passionate about, and we take a bit of action towards it. As we do that, our vibration changes and we start attracting more people like us that may be working on similar projects or similar problems or things that are similarly interesting to similar minds. And so we start this kind of contagion of positivity and practical action. And I think if we are able to just take one step, and stand up within our communities, we will garner the right kind of energy to create something beautiful, all the while keeping an eye on what's going on, thinking, why are they letting us do this? where is the destination? And to quote David Icke, he said,
the end of the world is coming.
No, okay, yeah.
1989.
Yeah, they've all said that. But he says, when you know the destination, you can see the steps. But until you see this, like, if you don't know the destination, if you don't know the final destination of where your governments are trying to lead you, all you see is a load of situations that occur, and they all look like they're coincidental. You know, like COVID-19 looks like it's a coincidence how it's happened, or, you know, there'll be lots of different things. But if you know that they're trying to get you into, or there's an idea to get a cashless society, and then you look at this and then think, oh, hang on, they could piggyback ditching cash because germs might be attached to cash, then you start seeing the possible ramifications, or the possible how we're going to be led like little children on reins towards the solution that they want. So I just think it's a time for us to be cautious and also really positive, and we start standing strong. I
think we should stand strong anyway, because it's a good strategy.
Yeah,
I think that the leaders you refer to don't love us because they don't know us. It's very hard to love someone you don't know.
Yeah, well, there
and
is that,
I also
there?
think they couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, as often demonstrated. Currently, there's a massive level of incompetence, and also I also think that leaders are in it for their own good, because we're all in everything for our own good. But I really think that at the moment, how it occurs to me about conspiracy theorists, and you've demonstrated it there, is that the idea of they is what we do as kids. We start
parents like that.
We start to talk about our parents not as people, but as the powers that be, or see them like that.
It's true.
And I think that people, like you say, who haven't resolved their parent issues, and not many people have, to be fair, can project that onto governments and to external forces that they believe have an agenda to run thereally lives. And they might have in some sense, because I guess that a lot of people do go into politics to organise other people's lives.
Yeah.
But I don't have much interest in a grand schemes of such things and what get called conspiracy theories, because actually I think it affects your life so little anyway, unless you let it. For whatever way, you either think about that stuff a lot, or you keep seeing it because that's what you believe in, and then lo and behold, it's the same manifestation process of like, look, I'm being controlled, and you keep looking for it, and there it is. You keep being controlled because you keep looking for it.
Yeah.
But that's all going to kind of become evident soon anyway, isn't it? When Donald Trump reveals himself as the genius chess player and not a mumbling buffoon at his daily press conference, because he's doing an amazing job at the moment of masterminding or being part of a strategic group that's going to bring drain the swamp and bring peace to all of mankind, whilst looking like an absolute moron. I mean, hats off to the guy. So
it's really
he's a really great he's a great example of just how terrible leaders are and how incapable they are of organising anything bigger than, a big old sort of narcissist self-love job creation scheme like he's managed to do for himself as this so-called most powerful man in the world. And that only happens because people keep calling him that. I don't recognise these people as my leaders. I don't accept them as shaping my destiny. So
you're really at cause. I don't know. You really are like your own.
No, well,
creator, are you?
No, because I haven't resolved my parent issues either, and I'll be manifesting my dysfunctions in different ways. I just don't feel that committed to the conspiracy theory route as a lot of my friends and people I know are. I don't find it exciting or engaging or anything like that, and I might be doing that because of my dysfunction. I might just like being right about, how sort of superior and condescending and arrogant I can be. That's just a good way of me being able to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Look down on all conspiracy theorists. So I don't know, and we'll see, or we won't see. I suspect we won't see. I suspect, 95% of our life comes under our own self-determination, and the amount of conspiracy theory control that could be there is tiny. Unless you think about it all the time, then it's massive to you. But what I did hear on the radio this morning, a woman called in from Sweden. Yeah. They're not doing lockdown in Sweden. They're just telling old people not to go out, telling vulnerable people not to go out. The rest of the population is doing their normal life. And a woman phoned in from Sweden to say that could never happen in England because people aren't as compliant as they are in the collective way they are in Sweden. And anyway, thousands of people in Sweden have already got microchips in their hands who work for the government and the armed forces, so they can be monitored anyway. It's like, ooh, okay. And she said it with...
Oh, their temperature, their biometrics can all be monitored.
I don't know. They've got, some chip in the web of their hand.
Yeah.
And, between the thumb and their forefinger, I think, for tracking and monitoring purposes. I don't know how sophisticated they are. And I didn't even know if she was a wind-up or whatever. But that's an interesting thing. It's now the 1st of April. And I didn't say that as an April Fool's joke. This woman actually phoned a British radio station and said that. I agree with her about how I think Swedish psychology culturally works better for people to organise themselves.
They seem a lot more grown up.
They can be trusted to go out.
Yeah. And I don't think they're mollycoddled, are they?
I don't know. I would just, if it was like the choice between being with a group of British people, being sovereign and responsible, or Swedish people, I think I'd go with the Swedes.
Yeah.
And obviously it varies from person to person, but as a national stereotype, the Brits, I think the Brits are in a class-based teenager versus parent psychological battle, aren't they? Mm-hmm. That's what the class system is as well, isn't it? It's like you have to look up to these people who look down on you.
Yeah.
That is parent-child dynamics, isn't it? And British culture is so much like that and attached to it, deeply attached to it. And I can't be doing with it, frankly. And I much prefer to live in a culture where I don't understand what the hell's going on. So
it has its benefits.
It doesn't it? So you don't know if you're doing the right thing or not. If you're playing, your part in some sort of national stereotype or not, or being on this side or that side. I just don't know what the hell's going on a lot of the time, and that is really freeing. But again, that's like being a child. And also,
that is like being not a child. It's like being an infant. Before we've got the language to communicate our needs, and
but it also
we use sign language a lot of the time, don't we?
Or looking at a different way, you are very much yourself. How you present yourself and how you stand in the community here is pretty naked.
Yeah,
you don't have the cultural stuff to step into. You are what you are for all the world to see, and you can make some terrible blunders, but at least it's authentic and real.
It's kind of forgiven as well. I mean, like our 1-year-old, for instance. He can't communicate, but he makes his needs absolutely.
He's pretty good with a headbutt at the moment.
Yeah, but he's really, really charming as well.
Yes.
Like he knows
he
how to...
uses his whole repertoire.
Yeah.
Animal repertoire.
And that's what we have to do as well when we go out.
I don't headbutt people, I hasten to add. I draw the line there. Smiling, yes. But anyway, we've rambled quite a long time. That might be why we get a thumbs down.
Yeah,
because it's quite a long and self-indulgent ramble, which I hope has been interesting in some ways.
Well, I'd be interested to know what other people think. Like how do
where this
you
is
think?
Heading.
Where are you in your psychology? Does this ring true? I'm really curious.
Are you being a massive big kid long after you should have grown out of it? Is my question to myself
and to me. I've just
and to everybody.
Yes, I am.
Well, and that's. I think we are. I think we just don't have the mechanisms for growing up. So it was understandable that we would behave like kids or resort to that.
Well, yeah. Also, I don't think our parents had the resources either, did they?
No, the world is full of kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where are the grown-ups? Where are the elders now?
In fact, I wrote on my status today on Facebook that I ventured far and wide and deep to find good role models. I've always been looking for good role models, people that could inspire me. As a kid and a teenager, I looked around and everyone I looked at, I just thought, your life sucks. I don't want your life. What's your life about? What's the point? None of it made sense. I saw this like world of 9 to 5 in front of me, and I saw this kind of prescription of what a good life looked like. And as a teenager, I was horrified. I just thought, what's the point of being here at this time if that's all that there is? And so I've spent my life looking for role models. And actually, I found some great ones, but I've also learnt most of the stuff I've learnt from thinking, I don't want that, don't want that, I don't want that. I've learnt lots from people who've expressed their regrets at not taking action and not following their heart and being too afraid to do that. So, I'd be really keen to know for other people, like, who are your role models? Like, where are they? Where are these role models?
It's true.
Where are these people we look up to?
Yes, the cabinet of the UK. Again, I'm sorry to make that is my best reference.
Don't look up to any of them, do you?
It's like Lord of the Flies, though. They seem like a load of teenagers to me. All those, like Boris and all his pals they're like old teenagers. They don't have a statesman-like, elderish vibe to them. There's Lord of the Flies. They've managed to get into positions of power. There's that shadowy figure at the back, Cummings, and very few people step forward. There was an older guy who spoke with some sort of gravity, an older Tory, who I thought was quite. He just had, it just came down to whether I thought what he was saying was useful or not useful, rather than like when I hear the Chancellor speaking, I think he's like a kid, really. He's like he just talks like a scripted debating society guy at university. He doesn't talk with the gravity of an elder. And that's what we need at the moment, isn't it? Someone who talks from their life experience, considerable life experience. The Ken Clarks of the world, I suppose.
I was thinking Corbyn.
Yeah, and Jeremy Corbyn does
and
that,
I was thinking Galloway as well. I mean, he's had some experience, hasn't he?
Yes.
But I mean, like, what about that dude that your mum had a photo taken with?
Noam Chomsky,
yes. I mean, he's well inspiring. I really like Marianne Williamson as well. I mean, you get that she's quite authentic.
Yeah, but
Charles Eisenstein. Now, he's
for a young
youngster.
Man,
I say deep. Youngster, he's probably my age.
He's deep.
He's really deep and awesome.
He's drawing on something substantial. Yeah. That's the difference, isn't it?
He's an elder already. He's not an elder in training.
It's what you're drawing upon that makes the difference, isn't it? And if you're just drawing upon a bunch of opinions or, just the scientist's view or just the research view or just the flipping, what they call the what's that thing in marketing? Focus groups. If you're just drawing on all that superficial stuff, it's not very helpful. But if you can draw on, other great people and life experience and, hard won, bloody nose kind of experience, people hear that.
Yeah,
I think they know it.
And
when
there's
they hear
stories
it.
Like when you're saying that, bloody nose experience, you're talking stories, aren't they? You're talking about people's narratives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing I like about Charles Eisenstein. He references mythology and other stories going on. In fact, what's his name does as well. Crikey, rubbish of names, aren't I? Who's that Canadian?
Nigel Farage?
The Canadian that likes roast beef. What's his name?
The Canadian that likes roast beef. Jordan Peterson.
That's it, Jordan Peterson.
Nailed it in one there.
But Jordan Peterson has, he can liken everything back to mythology and proper archetypes.
You see,
and things like that.
That's what people don't like about him. The ones who don't like him.
Well, he's like Dad, isn't he?
He's very articulate.
He's very much Dad.
He's also the smart ass uncle who no one likes as well.
Yeah.
Except some people, similarly disenchanted people relate to him, don't they?
Yeah.
But a lot of people find him quite vile, which is interesting in its own way as well. Any road.
Yeah,
the hind legs of a donkey are strewn all around the room here. And the rats are throwing themselves on the traps, which is a sign for us to perhaps stop after 3 hours of podcasting. But seriously, give us a shout about what you enjoy in what we're talking about or not. I mean, I guess if you've got this far, you might enjoy it, or you've just stuck around to hate it enough to maybe write a comment as well.
Or drop us a line and come and join us. Yes. Not actually in bed, but
we're social distancing. I mean, not that we'd welcome that at any other time, but it's like come via. Do it technologically. Is what I'm saying. Bye.